The following is a production of Medfield TV, Community Shows.
Okay, so we have a lot to get through tonight. First up, we're just going to get through some administrative things. We have the meeting minutes from the last meeting, and didn't know if anybody had any comments on those.
I do.
Okay.
Got a couple. This is from the December 17th meeting, correct?
Yep.
So I was there in person, not remotely. I think at a minimum, Sharon Tatro was also there. So I think she should be reflected as being not here now, but I think she should be there. I think those are the corrections on that. And then I just had a correction to paragraph 15 as to what my concern was. My concern was the way that section 4.5 read was that the state could ask for a change in scope for which the town would be responsible for paying, not that the architect could charge it due to a delay in schedule, but that the changes, we would not have any control over the change in scope, but we'd have to pay for it. That's 15 in the minutes. Other than that, I didn't have any more comments. I don't know if there's anybody else who was, I think
I know, you're right,
rosters-
you were definitely here.
I was definitely
We weren't doing roll
I
call
think that
last
might have
time.
been a
Carryover.
from when you were in
and I'm pretty sure Sharon was there and sitting in the front row.
Sharon was there, yes, that's correct.
I don't know if any of those other ones are wrong, but those are the only two that stood out to me. Everyone else who's claimed to have been there, I recall being there, and the same thing for the people who were absent. And Gina, were you on, I don't think you were on the phone for that.
I was.
You were, okay.
Yeah.
The morning meeting. Oh, okay.
The morning meeting, yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. That's all.
Anyone else have any comments on the minutes? Mike, do you want to review another draft before
No, I think we
voting
can
on
make
them?
those corrections, we can approve them as amended.
Okay, is that a
Everyone
motion?
agrees with those amendments. I would move that we approve the minutes as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Walt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No one's remote right now.
No one's remote, so, and, yeah, so we have a quorum here anyways. Okay, so the minutes were approved as amended. So the next topic of conversation, I had some conversations with Anna Mae from the school committee, and I know she's had some conversations with the rest of the school committee. The general feel was that the school committee wants to ensure that they've got representation at as many meetings as possible, and Leo's schedule, I guess, hasn't allowed for as much of that as he would have liked. So they have requested an additional seat on this committee, which I thought personally was a good idea, but I wanted to bring it to the committee for any comments, and basically the recommendation this committee would make would be to, if so approved, would be to the Board of Selectmen that should be added to the committee, and then if they approve that, then it has to go to the MSBA. I don't see any issues with the MSBA. They generally let membership of the committee be up to the town, so outside of the initial required positions. So I'll put it to the floor and ask if anybody has any comments.
Will we be adding this person as a voting member?
That's up for discussion. I think we hadn't had that discussion with Anna Mae. I don't know. It may or may not be beneficial. I don't know if anybody had any thoughts on it. I personally don't have strong feelings either way. Anna Mae, I don't know if you want to discuss maybe what the school committee would prefer.
Well, our main concern is we always want to have presence at a meeting and we need to be respectful that people have mortgages to pay and jobs to do and travel, so we just want to have backup. So I'm not quite sure how it normally works under these circumstances. I mean, because I think there are 3 voting members, are there not?
7.
Oh,
There are 7 voting members currently.
oh,
But
okay.
typically, it's good to have a, odd number, so that
Correct.
you
So
can
you-
have a quorum.
Right. Well, so you don't have votes
It
that
wouldn't
add up.
affect the quorum would still be.
Correct. It would just be if a vote were tied 4-4, if there was something controversial. Generally, we haven't run into many of those, but that would be something. And, I mean, if that were the case, we could potentially add, another voting member and make it 9 voting members if needed, but.
I mean, the only reason to do that for the tie-breaking purposes is if it would have some effect on anything. In other words, if the committee were to vote evenly on some subject, let's say someone had to recuse themselves and it was 3-3, what effect does that have? Would that actually prevent anything from happening, or would that just be a recommendation to town meeting or to somebody else as to what's actually, what's the statutory
have to have a
regulatory
majority
authority
vote.
of the?
We do need to have majority vote for certain votes to be able to present to the MSBA.
Okay.
So that's one way or another, we do need to come to a conclusion. And so if there's a stalemate for some reason, we would have to come up with some way to break that
Tie-breaking.
tie.
And the only reason I was saying that is that it does move the quorum to 5, right?
No,
It's still 4.
It's,
4.
I think it's 50%.
it's 50%
Okay.
or more, is my understanding.
Yeah, I think the quorum is still before, because you have some even number, total bodies.
Right.
I think that's, I mean, unless the MSBA has some other regulation. for it,
Nope,
but I think
the
for
MSBA
town
does
body,
not.
It's 50%.
Because that would not be majority if it was a 4 vote.
Right.
That's all I was saying.
So with
Right.
other projects you've done in the past with building schools, is there a norm for how many?
I'd say that typically it's an
members?
odd number.
Okay.
I personally have not encountered it.
I mean, it
even
doesn't
number.
matter that it's
Yeah.
an even number, and this is not, has anything to do about voting. It's just make sure we think about the process, about
Right.
what it
Yeah,
means.
so I would-
For MSBA votes, I think we would have to be a 5-3, because 4-4 would not be a majority
Right.
vote. Any other voting, it doesn't matter at all. So I just want to.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, if your concern is just obviously
Presence
nothing
of
prevents
yeah.
you from coming anyway.
Yeah,
Even if
yeah,
you're on the
yeah.
committee.
But what if
So-
Leo had to,
Leo
what if there
has
were votes
one.
one night, and Leo was not present? Would I
Right.
have a,
No.
No,
Okay.
we would have
You
to
could-
add you as a voting member if in order for you to have a vote. So, I mean, generally speaking, in terms of how we function as a building committee, we look for consensus anyway. We're not,
Yeah.
we don't, we try to get to a point where there's never a controversial decision, that we're all in agreement, but I will say, there have been a few times where we've encountered, like tonight, where we're barely, scratching the surface on a quorum, so having some more voting members, and then it may be that if we did add Anna Mae as a voting member, we could add another voting member from the existing committee.
Right. I mean, it would still create the issue, though, that, I mean, if you didn't add anybody, and you just made sure somebody covered it, then any one of the 5 of you could come and cover it. And if you were to add one other actual natural person, where both of those natural people can't come, then you have the same problem with not having representation. Right? The idea is you just want to have somebody here, you can have somebody here without actually being on the committee. And that's,
the intention was to have our presence here at all times.
right.
So, I'm going to really, I've never done one of these building,
I think
things,
we had
just-
talked about if you were on the committee, then you can participate actively in the meetings and discussions.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Which may be different if she's just a member of the public. Agreed.
yes, thank you.
I don't have an objection either way. I mean, I think it's unlikely you're going to have a 4-4 split on anything. The only problem is if you do, then you create a whole host of other issues if you have that unlikely
Right.
occurrence.
So, I mean, that said, I mean, would you be open to just joining the committee as a non-voting member? Is that something that's acceptable? And if Leo, the other way is if you think you're gonna be here more often than Leo,
Maybe swap the
maybe
two.
swap the voting
Right.
representation to you. I don't know, how you guys plan to sort of divvy up representation, but,
And I do think it would be, I mean, I think the consistency is, as best as possible is better. In other words, so if Leo's
That's our
schedule,
intention, yes.
and I certainly have sympathy for people who travel a lot and have difficult work schedules. I participated in our soccer meeting last night from O'Hare Airport. But,
it's a big commitment, you know, I
yeah, and
recognize
so,
this
I
is a
think
big
that
commitment.
consistency is important, and so if he's gonna have challenges throughout this period of time, which is a relatively condensed period of time, I think school committee folks might wanna talk about whether it makes sense. We could still have him as a non-voting member, because I sense you're uncomfortable with even split, and so, I mean, I think we could have, which is a.
Probably higher.
Yeah, and so
It's okay.
I'd be fine to, if we were to swap out and have him as a non-voting member come.
I'm not comfortable just saying that
I
right now,
understand,
because
yeah.
I
Without
really
having-
want him to be
Right.
part of the conversation, because I don't think that's
Yeah,
fair.
no, he should be part of the conversation.
Yes,
Um,
okay.
I'm sensitive to your concern that in the 1 in 100 chance that we have a split, you don't want to be in a situation where then there's this question, okay, you're split, now we're appointing somebody
I
to
just
break the
wanted to
tie,
make it,
and then,
yeah, I just wanted to make it notice.
Yeah,
I
It's a
don't,
fair
I don't
point.
really think that, I mean, I don't have a major concern about it, I just wanted to make the committee aware, that's all.
I mean, I don't expect there to be, you know, many instances, if any, where we're just split down the middle, but,
and then is there any?
I do
any
appreciate your
reason not to
point.
go to 9?
well, that's the next question.
Yeah,
Would
And
be-
a quorum's definitely fine.
It would be 5. I think quorum would be 5, and have the odd issue. And the quorum's already 4, you just have to bat 500 and which people get there. From where we already are, so. So if why don't you and Leo talk, and if you both like, you know, I'd be happy to have both on, and we just have it.
Yeah,
Right?
All right.
that's the way to go.
That'll solve your problem.
All right, so we'll
table or,
table this till next meeting, okay?
or do you want
Well, I
to
mean,
vote to
or do you-
add and then
Yeah, and
decide
then I,
on voting or
whether,
non-voting
yeah,
next?
exactly.
Yeah, I think if,
Process.
is anybody here against doing this, one way or the other? And anybody have a strong view as to whether it's, so.
I'm supportive of adding another school committee member. The logistics around voting, I really don't have a strong feeling about.
Yeah, and so I think I'd make a motion that the committee recommend that if NMA and Leo decide to swap spots, purely we'll swap them out. If they both want to be on, we'll put them both on, and recommend the board of something, add a ninth member.
A ninth voting
A
member.
ninth voting member to the committee, which could just frankly be
From
from
the
one of the
existing.
non-voting
Right,
members
exactly.
into a voting member. And that would solve everyone's problem.
Can we just have the vote be to add her as a school building committee member and a decision on voting, non-voting will occur at the next meeting, something like that?
Yeah.
That's
Sure.
fine.
That makes it cleaner, I
That's
think.
fine. Well, I'm just thinking, we're gonna have a select meetings in between now and our next building committee, and so we could take care of that in between without having to come back to here and then we have it really set for the next one.
Oh, yeah,
That's what I was-
signing the school building committee formation form.
Yeah, but the
Or
selectmen
we-
first have to approve it before we can have this.
Oh,
approved.
Right, the selectmen have to approve it before we can submit it to the MSBA.
Yeah.
And at the time so you have to sign the form too.
Right.
I think we could do that on the 21st. We can see if we have the
Oh, I see.
proper composition of the committee for our February meeting as opposed to a March. That's all I'm thinking is that if
Oh,
we get.
so why don't we add NMA, well, that's not nice. But
Add as a
why don't I
voting.
make a decision, a recommendation that you add her as a voting member and then add a ninth person as well?
Unless Leo wants to take this opportunity.
So, yeah, the,
I don't know.
Right, well, he's not here, you gotta talk to him, but I'm just saying,
Okay.
yeah.
so we would want to make sure that we get enough to fill a quorum of 5, we have to hit a higher threshold. Just wanna make sure.
Whoever we add is gonna have to be reliable attendee.
Right, exactly.
Wouldn't you add it from the group you already have?
Yes.
So-
Yes. So anybody who's not here doesn't have a chance.
Yes.
A rare night we might be controversial, it could be the same night somebody's not here. We would have it on the committee that ended up using again, so I don't know about this odd even conversation.
Well,
so.
I mean,
Important and-
Mike, since you made the motion and you represent the Board of Selectmen, I
Okay.
would defer to you what,
Yeah, I would say we recommend the board of selectmen may add anime as a member of the committee.
And then we'll sort out the
In their
voting issue.
discretion as to whether it's a voting member or non-voting member, subject to the discussions the anime is gonna have, and they're gonna sort out what they're gonna do. And then I think our recommendation should be that if we add her as a voting member, then the second also add a night voting member.
That's the whole motion?
Yeah.
so,
We got a videotape, so.
Just a quick question, in terms of attaining quorum, do you folks have a difficulty making
No.
quorum?
usually, no, we've had a couple of nights where we've come close,
Like tonight.
like tonight. Like we are at the minimum for a quorum tonight, so, yeah, and again, I recognize that there's only gonna be a lot of meetings, and we're doing this monthly right now, but this body may end up meeting more frequently as well, just because there's gonna be a lot more stuff to get through. But, so it's always good to have, it's a big commitment, but it's good to have people who can be here consistently. So there's a motion to add Anna Mae O'Shea as a member to the SBC and with voting rights to be determined. And between now and the selectmen meeting, you will talk it over with Leo and we'll touch base before that meeting. And probably, that way we can present something to the selectmen on the 21st.
Okay, thank you.
So do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Not hearing any.
That one wasn't controversial.
All right. Thank you, that was helpful.
Thank you.
Anime's
folks.
family's not here to object.
Another meeting tonight.
Now that you've been recommended, you have to sit through the rest of the meeting.
Exactly.
All right, so next up is the preliminary design program, otherwise affectionately called the PDP. So Lynn, do you want to take it away?
So we had an educational visioning workshop session, with the greater, group of, educational planners, as well as parents and, representatives from the town as well. That happened yesterday from 4 to 8. It was more, gathering more information from the group as a whole. There were several exercises that took place to discuss, what the teachers and community envision for the new school. Those meeting minutes and the presentation will be posted as soon as we get those back from our educational consultant, David Stephen. So that everybody will be able to see what took place. And then we're gonna start, this has changed since the printing of this agenda. Meetings will start with teachers and staff on 1/17. That will be a full day of meetings. Teachers will come in and out depending on their free time period during the day to meet with the architects. Air Street will come to that meeting with a preliminary space program together. And as they talk to each of the different departments and teachers, that space program will start to get modified based on input that's provided. I don't know if you want to say anything more about that, Jessica?
You summed it up pretty nicely, but yeah, so Emily Grandstaff-Rice will be, who's our educational programmer as well, will be kind of hosting those meetings. And it's just a way to kind of dive deeper into some of the requirements for Medfield specifically and how the education gets delivered, by grade, by discipline. We'll even be meeting with administration staff, with, the cafeteria, lunchroom staff, and really kind of getting in deeper into the needs and kind of daily workings of Dale Street. So that the goal of the effort is to really have a thorough and robust educational space summary that will be part of the PDP, and that gets submitted to the NSBA for review and approval. So we really want to get as much information as we can into that document.
And the preliminary space program will also be the document that's used to generate design option layouts for the various sites. So that'll be part of this PDP too, so that it helps to evaluate which site we end up on.
So that's starting on the 17th, you said?
Yes.
And is it multiple days? Or just one?
We're
day?
targeting,
Right now we have one.
yeah, we're targeting 1 day right now. That is a half a day for school, so that it reduced the amount of time the teachers had to get, pulled out of their rooms, and we can be flexible with that. But, it's going to be, half an hour meetings or so with small groups of teacher cohorts or admin cohorts, et cetera, so a full day.
And any meetings required after that will get probably scheduled at that date. Then our proposed future educational visioning workshops, we have one scheduled for January 28th, and that will be with the same group that we had yesterday. And then after we get the input from those 2 working sessions, we'll be doing another community educational visioning working session, which is currently scheduled for February 4th. As part of that too, Arrow Street will be doing a building performance visioning session too, to talk about sustainability and energy efficiency and all that for the building. And that will be a combined community forum, which will be open to the public.
So that Christine will need to definitely get the energy committee on board for that, to at least be present and be able to provide feedback would be great. I'd like to at least touch base with them.
Yeah, we would like to maybe
Yeah.
meet with them in advance. I know we've been trying to get that scheduled, so, because we would like to, as part of that community forum, already have the input of the,
Yeah, it would help to come with some
Yeah.
answers already in the end. Or at the very least recommendations and preferences before we finalize that. Because there's gonna be some important decisions we're gonna need to make in regards to certain goals for energy consumption for the building, and energy performance, in that some of those require more investment up front, but pay off in the long run, by reduced energy consumption. So, and there's a wide range of options. So we're gonna, as we do on the building committee, we don't really set that policy. We look to the selectmen, and they look to the committee for that information. So in terms of how far we want to go and what the town's goals should be. So
we're looking to achieve an additional 2% of reimbursement, and in order to do that, we have to meet at least LEED Silver certification. But I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the presentation will start with things that we can do that are no cost, that are, easy things. But when we get to the items that may cost money, it'll be presented so that the town can decide what they want to do.
there's a lot of things that are required by Mass State Energy Code anyway that get us almost all the way there. The real question becomes how far we go beyond that sort of minimum level of qualification. I know a lot of schools that we work with are at least exploring either net zero or net zero ready buildings. Some are doing fossil fuel free, so it really depends on how far we want to go. Some of those have premiums, some of them have short payback times, some of them have longer payback times. So that'll be an in-depth discussion in terms of building performance.
Lynn, are you scheduled to meet with the Energy Committee on Monday night, on the 13th?
No.
We had tried to get
Okay.
a meeting. but we
I
haven't
reached out
confirmed
to
that yet.
Alex Stevens and Fred Davis and a couple of times, but I haven't been able to get a response back. So Do they have a meeting on the
They're
13th?
meeting on the 16th, so I'm gonna
On the
email him right
16th.
now and see if he can get on his agenda.
That would be good.
I think we
That was
had
part of the
in
group last night too, so.
our matrix, and we changed it to the
Okay.
updated matrix.
Gotcha, okay.
We changed it
It's still on my
to be
schedule, so.
determined because.
I thought I could actually take something off my schedule.
Yes, so, and there'll probably be several meetings, because as the MEP consultants get more involved, there'll be
Right.
energy modeling, there'll be more information to make decisions on.
So,
This is a
just
preliminary
check my schedule.
discussion.
I could probably, assuming I'm free, I am free, I could probably attend that meeting and at least bring this topic up. And then, really, we want them here for this meeting to inform, especially with the consultants. We'll need probably a separate meeting just with consultants to talk them through some of their goals. So, where is that meeting, Christine? Or
In
Amy?
this room.
Upstairs?
And what is that meeting?
The energy.
Energy.
Just their regular meeting.
I would hope.
I need to check
I can get
with,
this out.
I'm texting her now, yeah.
I'll just show up. What time, 7? 7.
Is it 7? Yes.
Lynn, I don't know if you guys need to be there for that. I can handle that in terms of just prefacing the conversation, and then we can bring them to this meeting.
So, yeah, I mean, if they don't get it on the agenda though, is that public session on the 4th is changed a bit?
No, so I think, at least the way I envision it is I'll go to this meeting on the 16th and invite them to the 4th, but there's also gonna be something happening between now and then to
Right.
kind of preface that,
Until we get in there.
yeah.
Okay.
And you gave Fred the date of the 4th as well.
Not at that time, but I reached out to him saying, we need to start a conversation. Actually, he reached out to me back in November, I responded. And then I didn't hear back, and then I saw Alec at the first community visioning session, and afterwards I reached out, I sent him and Fred an email, but I didn't hear back, so I don't know if it just got, my email was being blocked or something, but,
Well, I would say before you meet with them, you should give them the date of the 4th. So that they know about the date.
yeah.
It seems to be more important that they're at that meeting and that it's discussed at the
It's really critical because we have a meeting with Eros before.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so-
I just,
That's from here.
I mean, my going to the 16th is really just to do that,
Right.
is to preface the conversation and to invite them and see what they're able to do in terms of, if it needs to move from the 4th, then we'll cross that bridge. I imagine they'd be able to accommodate it, but.
So.
Yeah, so I was just gonna touch, so there's really 2 different visionings that we were planning to run. The 4th is a little bit more of a, half an hour session within the bigger visioning that just touches on building performance, kind of a little education and a little bit of just dialoguing with what people are desiring. The one that we were targeting with the Energy Committee, which we were hoping to have first, because it sort of informs that second one a little bit more, dives much deeper into what are the goals for the town, what are, the certain milestones that we're trying to achieve, the certain thresholds you're trying to, exceed. It's a little bit more of like a deeper and more robust visioning session. It's a little bit more technical, but that then informs, that community meeting where you wanted them to be able to present what the town is trying to achieve and then dialogue on top of that, the visioning. So it would be ideal to have them in that order, but not necessarily, required. You could have the conversation backwards. So I just need to check with Kate Bobrisky. I believe she was at the first meeting when we came. She's our director of building performance, and she's the person that will be running both of those sessions, both the community session as well as the one, if we can achieve it, with the energy committee. So I'll try to check her
Okay,
schedule.
so we need to get that arranged between the 16th and the 4th.
Right.
Okay.
Do they meet once a month or more than that?
It matters, yeah. We try to do every month, but
So you could maybe do a special meeting between them? Okay.
I think it
Are you on that
I
committee?
am.
Oh, well,
Oh.
that helps.
Okay, and then in terms of the site selection update, I think Gina emailed out to everyone the packet of information that we put together to, help inform, Arrow Street's, DEP submission. And this is basically a packet. I know that we've been getting a lot of information from Mike and from Sarah Raposa that, that will continue to inform the site selection process. And we will include those documents as appendix, to the site selection packet. But what we wanted to accomplish tonight, and I didn't see the matrix in the, no, the matrix for the.
This right here?
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be in the packet, but,
It is in the packet.
what we wanted.
I thought-
Oh, is it in the packet? Okay. Oh, no, the neat.
I don't see it.
What we wanted to do, and I don't know if everyone had a, chance to take a look at the, working groups that, members that actually filled out the, their, rankings of each of the site solutions, with favorable, neutral, or unfavorable. And I wanted to try to get to a consensus tonight on each of these items if possible. And I guess we can either go by these line by line, or we can just ask in general if anybody disagreed with the consensus that, of the responses that you see here on the.
You guys have copies of that?
I brought mine.
Yeah,
It's
then
sent
you-
in a packet that you send in the email, it's just not in this.
It's not in
file.
the printed one,
No.
okay.
It's in the site selection.
So, yeah, just to sort of preface.
Well, maybe we might have to.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna be ready to get to a consensus at this point. What I wanted to do was have some discussion about it, because, we've put in sort of our initial thoughts, but, by no means do we want to, not include everybody else's, so, if there's.
Yeah, who filled this out?
So, Jeff, Mike, myself, and Stephen Graham.
So those are the
And
four
Leo.
people?
And Leo, I believe, right?
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I
Well,
believe.
someone didn't fill it out.
Yeah, no, actually Leo's is not included in that printout.
Which Mike is the one?
Mike LaFrancesca and myself.
Okay, so maybe let's take a step back then,
Yeah.
and, we will add,
I'd like to get some more.
we'll
input
add
from-
more numbers here and assign each of you a number, and you can go and fill out the form, so that we have the whole committee. I was hoping that if people had a chance to look at it and look at
Yeah.
what the working group has come up with based on this packet of information that we had put together, you know, if there wasn't any controversies here in terms of, because you can pretty much go down each category and kind of see what the consensus will
So-
probably end up being, but.
Taking a step back though also is, we went through with the design team and with, Medfield, and went through sort of some of the minimum conditions that a site needs, characteristics a site needs to have in order to accommodate a building and a use type such as this. We identified as many sites as we could reasonably find, and then we started discussing, you know, why they could or could not accommodate this project. So some of those other ones are listed that we evaluated that had sort of, you know, real minimum possibilities. Things like, you know, the sledding hill at Hospital Hill, or, yeah. We were trying to show we did do the due diligence of evaluating as many sites as possible. We looked at Redgate Farm, we looked at,
There's 6 of them.
yeah, there were 6 sites that.
Well,
you
it
could
went
see.
from 201 parcels that the town owned, and then once we went through the criteria of the size of the site, whether it had wetlands
Wetlands.
or other legal designations that we couldn't use the site for. That selection of 201 sites went down to, is it the- how many
Oh,
sites?
yeah.
50, like about,
There's about 50 sites, and then that was based on acreage. And then we went through all the sites which didn't have, well, something over time.
Some of the restrictions for
But 10 acres
open
or less.
space
and that's how we got down to the 6 sites that we dug a little deeper into. And in this packet, you can see the assessment cards, the GIS maps, and other information. And as I said, we'll include behind this an appendix that references all of the legal designations on these and other issues on these sites. But we went down from that number of 50 down to the 6 sites that are listed here. And that was the Dell Memorial School site, the Wheelock School site, Hospital Hill, Sledding Hill, McCarthy Park, Redgate Farm, and then the Medfield State Hospital site. And from those 6, we further narrowed it down based on, requirements.
other obstacles.
Obstacles, mostly legal
Legal,
designations. Whether it was historical or Article 97, which is parkland.
Or the agreement with the state for the state hospital, zoning related to that.
So that narrowed it from those 6 down to, back down to the Dale Memorial School site and the Wheelock School site, which is kind of, I think, where this whole thing started, but this document sort of proves that whole process out.
By the way, if there's a site we haven't considered that somebody knows of, it's, we'd be all ears, but I'm not aware of one that would fit the requirements of this project. So-
I know Larry asked the department heads that today when we had our meeting this morning, and there was no other sites.
Yeah. So anyway, so we did this in the working group as a way just to put some information out there and start the conversation. I do want to get everybody's feedback. I want to give everybody enough time to review it though as well. So we don't need to make any action on this. It's actually not even something I don't think we really need to vote on, but we do want to come to some agreement about, which sites are more favorable and which parts of the site are favorable for all the different criteria. And as you can see, there's an extensive list of criteria of how each site would be judged. Not only just the size of the site, but utilities and circulation, traffic controls, educational program.
Infrastructure to the
Infrastructure,
area,
yeah.
conditions of roadways, getting to them, and
Yeah.
stuff like
So, anybody have any questions on that?
that. So what we'll do is we'll add additional numbers across the top here and assign everybody a number. And if you can go up, we'll send it to Google Docs, and you can go in and fill in your responses.
Is there a glossary for some of these? One of the things that, some of them are obvious as to whether it would be.
Some of the terminology.
Some of the terminology, right? And so, for some of these things, I thought, obviously, some of them are technical. I don't know how to weigh in on the ease of segregation of construction, so it means keeping construction away from other people who are gonna complain about it.
Other occupants, or it could be like for instance, on the Dale Street site, would be segregating the construction from the existing school, from the FAFSA center, from the memorial school. Same thing on Wheelock site, would be segregating.
We don't have to go through all of this, you can explain to me what this means. If there was some, maybe I'll just email if I have questions.
Questions,
A
yeah.
few of them, I just wasn't sure what
That's probably a good idea.
what the category meant, what it was getting
Yeah.
at, in terms of what would be favorable,
Yeah.
what's unfavorable.
I think that's a good
You have
idea.
to populate all more columns, you have to get consensus for each item. Because some of them are different, some are neutral, some of them are unfavorable. So is the goal here to get one?
We want to
vote
end
on
up with
one column?
one, because that'll kind of inform us, when we get to the preferred schematic report phase of this project, that'll kind of inform us that this is the site.
So eventually there'll be one that says, this is what you're gonna vote on. Instead of, so
Yes.
like, number
Yeah.
10 will be what you're voting on.
And this doesn't,
And that's
this,
all I need.
and then are these ranked in order of importance in these categories? Like
No, and we can talk about that if you think
There's
that
obviously
weighting
some
needs
things
to
that are a
be.
lot more important
Right.
than others.
Right.
I mean, there's probably 10 or 12 of these that are really important, and the rest that are like, I mean, I've seen these before. This is how you do public buildings and things and public sales, and have these charts and graphs and the rest of it. I'm sure there's some lawyers somewhere, judge said that caused this problem for everybody, so you have to have these kind of forms. But I mean, really, there's these are not all equally weighted. They're all equally important. So I don't think we just add up like the favorables and the unfavorables and say, this one's got 28 favorables, that one's got 12. So it might be that on the key points, what we think are the key points, or whatever recommendation we make, one weighs much more heavily, right? It's an F plus versus.
I mean, ultimately, it's not like, it's not meant to be a scoring system.
Right.
It's meant just to sort of take a look at what's the two sites we think are the most likely, and say, to drill down a little bit deeper with each of those sites, to be able to compare them against each other.
Well, it's a useful exercise. I'm just
And,
saying that
yeah.
it's not like we can just add them up and say, all right,
Correct.
this one's got the most Fs, that's the winner.
No, and I think what would end up, what this may shake out is that we end up at a point where we, as a committee, have to, recommend a site, and this just informs that. It's not necessarily a scoring system, as you mentioned.
It's like and actually, at the end of the day, it'll have those consumer report symbols, like, solid for favorable, half for
Right.
neutral, and the zero.
Right. But I think we just have to be clear as to what it is, what it's being used for, because it's like anything else. If you assign a number to something or a rating to something, people will gravitate to that as if it's,
They
and
disagree
assume
on
that
it.
it's more scientific than it is. You put it, well, it's a 4.7, what does that even mean, right? So, my only concern is just to understand that this is a analytical exercise. It's not designed as a scoring system or designed, because
Correct.
you want to have schools, well, gee, this one had more Fs than Us, but one that had more Us. And I think the explanation in that circumstance, like, would be, well, those Fs were more important than the other ones. I mean, I think when you start to measure
Should we
stuff,
rank
people
them? Yeah.
can
Do
tend
you
to.
want to put them in order, one?
No, I don't think so.
I don't
If
think
it's
we
Then
would,
you have to
again,
really get into the
I
ranking.
don't,
Yeah, I don't think we should. I just
I don't
really think
think
it's
it-
not a ranking.
Okay.
And what we're trying to do is to say, okay, on the basis of, here's the pluses and the minuses, here's how they congregate, and then I think that would promote a more honest set of answers too, as opposed to if anyone's got a preference for one side or the other, and is going to weight their Fs and their Us, and that's it
Right.
might seem like that's the better site, even though maybe, look, this site's got 3 really great points that are more important than all the others, and that's why we're going to pick it. And we're going to deal with some of the downsides of the one we don't pick, because the advantages of one side over the other outweigh everything else.
I've also, in my experience, I've also found that what helps graphically is if we tend to use a sort of stoplight coloring system, so that you can, green for favorable and yellow for neutral and red for, that way. Sometimes it's easier just to look at without looking at Fs and Us and Ns or dots, and it just sort of comes off the page to you, just as to how things are viewed. So I think, Mike, to your point, it'd be good if you have questions on it, or also if you have suggestions. We tried to whittle down the criteria. If there's criteria on there you think are important, any of you think are important, in terms of comparing the two sites, then that isn't on there, please let that be known as well. So.
Yes, and if everybody could kind of take a look at this packet of information, and if you have anything to add, or, like I said, we're gonna be adding the documents that Mike and Sarah have given us that kind of inform the information here. In the back is an appendix, so we'll get that out again, but if there's anything to add on any of these sites, or if you think there's any other site that you want us to look at.
I thought that was well done, by the way, just looked through it, it was it told a pretty clear story of where we're at, and why there's only 2 sites.
Yeah.
So I had no problems with what you did. At least that was good.
Yeah, I agree. I read through it all yesterday, and I thought it was and I was surprised to see some of the sites on there, because it just jumped out to me, it's like, there's no, I mean, you can't build on Slutty Hill. You
Yeah.
can't build on
It wasn't that we were proposing it, it was more like, well, we gotta look at more than 2, just
No,
to
I
show
agree,
that we
right.
looked at more than 2.
Right. No, I think it underscores the limited amount of town-owned land we have, but I think it also shows that we do have at least 2 acceptable pieces of town-owned land, so we don't need to look at acquiring private.
Right.
That would be the other
Right.
step, instead we start looking at
Acquisition
privately
or
owned land
eminent domain,
acquisitions
we don't wanna go
and
there.
find some horse farm to buy for 100 acres and put it on there. But I think my takeaway from this is that what our, it's a small town, we know what land we know, and so it's not surprised that we were able to identify the likely sites before we did this. But I think it showed that we have two sites that are fine, that would be acceptable, and so we don't need to look at the added cost of acquiring land, which I think is an important conclusion to reach.
So what we'll try to do is just wrap this up and we'll give it to the school, they get posted on the site, people take a look at, and then, we'll hand it over to Air Street and they'll incorporate it in with their.
Yeah, if you'll send us the Google Doc.
Yes, we'll do that.
Because
Yeah.
the one other point I'll make on this is that, just as I think not every criteria has equal weight, I don't think everyone's, no offense to anyone, everyone's opinion of each of the criteria has equal weight. For example, you really shouldn't take seriously anything I say about whether it avoids wetlands, environmental conditions, because I have no idea any of those things. So for some of these things are fairly technical, and so, I would love a sort of not applicable or not qualified answer. I cannot express it.
I would just leave it blank.
I took the blank ones like that.
If you don't feel comfortable
Yeah, if I could
with
leave
the
some
top.
blank.
So some were blank throughout, and I noticed that,
Yeah.
obviously Mike has no idea if it,
Right. So that, if I can,
The buildable area,
blank
like,
work for me, otherwise it's just gonna be, what is this?
So, I mean, the main purpose of this is to get to, we wanna do the heavy lifting on the sites that are viable in terms of research, and then eventually we wanna do the even heavier lifting on just the site that we choose. So we don't wanna waste time exploring, potential sites that aren't really viable. Okay, so if everybody could, maybe email out any questions to Lynn and myself, maybe within the next couple of days, just so we can get the questions out there and get answers back to you, and then we'll sort of see where things gravitate from there, and I'll solicit the feedback from the committee. All right, what's next?
Yeah, and we'll, at the end of the day, we'll do a red, green, yellow, and at the next meeting, we'll just hand out that, and, it'll just be a visual.
Yeah.
You could see, and we don't have to get down to one. Okay, then, in these we've been carrying each meeting just basically on things that we need to start to pull together, for the PDP, and that's property deeds on the sites that we end up, now that we've gotten to the 2 sites, we can do that. And we've already gone through the process of determining historic designations and other registrations for all the sites, so we're down to the 2 that don't have any of those, parkland or historic, designations, but we do have an issue on, Wheelock, and I think a portion of Dell Street being on an aquifer overlay protection area. So we pulled out all of the bylaw requirements on that and have asked a handful of questions to kind of narrow down what we can do on those sites. And it doesn't prohibit building on them, but there may be certain requirements that we have to do during the construction process to make sure we're not contaminating groundwater. So,
Did that come up, I don't think we touched on it, but there was a department heads meeting this morning with all the sort of town departments and the design team, project team. was that raised, was anybody, I don't know who was there,
No.
so.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing that was raised was Mo was discussing the water treatment plant
Yeah.
that they're gonna put behind Wheelock at the very end of
At
that
the end,
property.
way down the end.
That was it, just coordinating that.
But from a bylaw perspective, was Sarah there to chime in on, you know, what does that mean, and what are the exact implications of being, because
We didn't get.
if you look at the overlay map, almost all of Medfield is in
Yeah.
an aquifer overlay. There's very few spots that are not. So.
I know that we had asked a series of questions in regards to the Aquifer Overlay District. And I think Sarah had pushed those out to various other members in the town to answer. And like I said, I don't see that it's a problem with construction, it's just, we want to make sure that, you know, we inform Air Street so that we can include it in the documents that what has to be done in a aquifer overlay protection.
So you're chasing that down with Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And then, design enrollment, we just have to pull that from the district, they have that information. And then we started talking the other day about the capital budget statement. Oftentimes, you don't really have to provide this until the preferred schematic report, but I like to do it in the PDP just to give us some opportunity to, if we have to make any changes from PDP to PSR, that we'll have the time to do that with MSBA.
Do
And
you have an
as par-
example of what one of those is?
Yes, I can send that out to everybody, but it's a template that MSBA has, and I know, I think the district has actually done at least part of it, if not all of it, on prior submissions to MSBA. So it may be just taking what they've already done and supplementing that, but there is a template, and I'll send it out to everybody. But
They want to make sure that we're in a position to be able to pay for the project, basically.
and to pay for the, you know, the staffing and the operations
Right.
after the fact as well. So they look at the 3 years prior to what your operating costs are, your maintenance costs, you know, and what you think it's gonna be at the opening day of the new school and for that year. So they can tell that, you know, so that they want you to go through the exercise to make sure you understand that, you know, you could have higher costs or higher maintenance costs or lower, vice versa. But, the district's familiar with it, and they'll take what they've already done and take this budget statement and fill that out. Another thing that we do need to start to look at is a debt service analysis. If you're gonna go out for public, you know, bond, this is something too that it could wait to preferred schematic, but it's good to get it in the PDP if we can. And just sort of a debt service analysis for the town and any upcoming projects that you may have, and that make sure you incorporate that as well, because they'll want to know that this fits in the whole picture in
Right.
terms of
That we have
other projects
the
you may
credit
have on the
capacity and the credit rating necessary to perform the project successfully and be able to borrow successfully.
Who's gonna do that?
So that
Yeah,
will
we
need,
did that, the treasurer collector, I think,
Yeah.
has already started to put some of that together, so.
Yeah, I can send some various examples from other projects if
That'd be
you
great.
want to
that'd
see.
be helpful, yeah.
Yeah. And, so our next, just in terms of community engagement, our next, meeting or public forum will be, still with educational visioning, hoping to kind of relay what we've gathered from the district and, at the February 4th meeting. But we also have one scheduled for February 24th that will not only talk about the educational plan, but also about where we ended up with site selection and just give an overall project update to the community on the whole process. I don't know, you want to go through the meetings and milestone schedule, Gina?
Yeah, so, in the packet that you guys have, I think you're all looking at it now, so, we're just we're just going along and checking things off as we've accomplished them. And, as you know, we did the all departments meeting on the 8th, this morning, and then this evening's meeting. And then the next thing, is the 13th. I mean, we want to meet, the working group on a pretty regular basis to keep things on track. And really importantly is, on the 13th, earlier in the day, Arrow Street is going to be meeting with district leaders. So they'll be meeting with Jeff and Steve to talk about the game plan for meeting with staff and teachers, which will be, something that's going to happen on the 17th. And as we talked about, the building performance workshop with the energy committee, to be determined, and again, we're going to do that sometime between the 16th and the 4th of February. So hopefully in the next couple of days, Mike, we can
I'll
narrow
spearhead
that
that, yeah.
down. And then on the 17th, there'll be the day where they will talk with the, Arrow Street will talk with the teachers to start talking about what their needs are for the program, for the new building.
Do you want to go over specifically any changes that occurred, just so that people that have been keeping, this is a document that may get changed many times as we go.
It does.
It will,
on.
it
And
definitely
you know
will.
what I think what we'll do is, because there's changes so often, I think on the Friday of the end of the week, I'm gonna be sending this out to be posted onto the website. So this way, as things change and update, and as we have meeting locations and all these things changing, we'll just do it on a regular basis. So I think compared to what was there last time, I think the biggest thing was the meeting on the 13th with Arrow Street and district leaders, and then have meetings with the teachers, which is gonna be on the 17th.
And then, so I know we weren't able to get on the Board of Selectmen's agenda for the 7th.
That's right.
So that's kind of key. We do want to get that contract approved, so.
You're on for the 21st.
So we're on for the 21st, okay.
Right. Because that meeting happened yesterday.
I go first?
So,
Yeah, exactly.
we have the revised
I can lunch for that
contracts.
one.
Yeah.
We have the revised contract put together, so we send that to you. Are you gonna
Yeah,
sponsor getting
yes.
that out to everybody?
Yep. So, the one question I had on the contract was, I don't know if we've made any progress on, site survey. Has that been taken any further?
We have a revised, proposal,
Yeah, if you could send that.
We'll send that to
I
you
wanna
and,
review
yeah.
that. I mean, we may not have it finalized by the 21st, but,
The main base contract should be.
the base contract is.
As voted and. gets
Exactly.
voted. Jessica, do you have anything you wanna, inform the committee of or ask that any needs from them on, as we
None that I can think of right now. No, I think I'm
So in your packet too is the December invoice summary that you're asking for approval on, and how that has affected the project budget status. As you can see, I added Arrow Street's,
So Lynn asked me about this, I told her I presented, I was okay with it, but if anybody has an objection, given that there was a delay in the contract, what we're asking is if we can vote on for approval the invoice for Arrow Street for the work they did in December, pending the approval of the contract on the 21st. That way, once that gets approved, it can be paid in a timely fashion, so they won't hold up payment twofold. Anybody have any objection to that?
No.
Great. So with that, I'll entertain a motion, or unless there's any further comment on the invoices for Medfield and Arrow Street. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Did we get any further on, who was it, Mitch?
That's what I was asking about, was the surveying with Nish.
Yeah.
So basically what we're going to be asking the Board of Selectmen on is to approve the base contract,
what we're talking
and a
about.
not to exceed amount for the supplemental services.
Mhm.
Ultimately, the supplemental services are done as an amendment to the contract, so all of those need to go in front of the selectmen anyway, so. We don't need to have it resolved to get Arrow Street moving. Obviously, they already are moving on good faith, so, we want to move the contract along, and then when we finalize the scope of the survey, we'll put an amendment in front of the selectmen.
As you can see in the budget, we only committed their base contract,
Right.
and we haven't made any commitments against the other departments.
I guess my question is why can't we just give them the 10 months what we need? Like, I'm okay with moving forward that way, but like, why continue to wait? Is it the holidays and things like that?
I think we were trying to
just
get
backed
further
up?
down the line in terms of what exactly we wanted them to do on each site, and we were trying not to spend on things
Sites
that
that
we
we
didn't.
weren't gonna use.
That we weren't gonna use, and the question is really the level of detail that we do need at this phase. So
And how we
I
might
haven't
can
seen.
supplement it during the schematic design, or,
Yeah.
you know, when's
So-
the right time to do it and what to do.
Okay.
So, I mean, I haven't seen the revised, you said they sent you a revised
Yeah,
proposal.
we just got it yesterday.
Yeah, so, I mean, we'll evaluate it, I'll distribute it if anybody wants to take a look at it, and, but ultimately, we can go back and forth and negotiate on that while still approving
Yep.
the other
I agree.
services. Any other questions on that? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll second that.
I didn't move, I
Oh,
was
I'll
asking
move
for a
it,
motion,
yeah.
but. So, there's a motion to approve the invoices for December in the amount of $49,300. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye. All opposed? Not hearing any?
And we propose to have the next meeting on February 12th with public safety.
Any conflicts arising?
Yeah.
Major conflicts?
I'm flying home from,
All right, I'll check in with Tim and Tom also, just to see.
I
probably
can get
back
here
in
at
time.
8.
What's that?
I can get here at 8 to have class.
I'll email you. Gotta check my flight.
Okay.
Okay, so
Do you have
will
any
it
other,
just be determined?
do you have any other business? Okay, I'll open it up to the floor, for the committee. Does anybody have any new business they want to bring up at this time? No? I'll open it up to the public. Does the public have any? Chris?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I just have a question of clarification, and then I have a little service that I did for you guys. Question of clarification, on the milestone schedule for the February 4th visioning workshop, this is the December 17th milestone schedule. It was noted that February 4th, the topic for the session 2 would be grade configuration and open public discussion. It sounds like there may be a shift more to building performance for that night and not.
It sounded to me like that was gonna be a small part
It's
of it.
only, yeah, so actually, the agenda the working agenda we have now for that session, kind of, it builds on the other two, but we were going to just do a half an hour of the 4-hour session on building performance. So it's a small piece of it. The other parts, as of now, and this is a working agenda, so we might need to adjust it after the other sessions, was what we call blue sky ideas, is to just generate as many, big picture thinking ideas. Bubble diagramming, which is sort of an active participation of people thinking and sketching of how they would, see a building coming together. And just key talking points, which is just kind of a large group debrief on overall. So it's a smaller piece of the 4-hour session.
So one thing, Gina, I just noticed this on here too. You have the 10th as finalized grade configuration. That's not that's not going, because we have the school committee meetings that are, we won't be finalizing grade configuration. That will be coming from the school committee. So we should just clean that up. Same with the 212.
Really, it means, and actually, we actually postponed all of that to the preferred schematic report. So we're going
Correct.
in with 2 grade configurations in the preliminary design program. So, yes.
And there were three specific school committee meetings or not dedicated, but where this topic would be addressed. That was the 13th, the 27th, of February, and March the 12th was when potentially would be a vote from the school committee on which grade configuration. But
We even pushed that one out to preferred schematic as well, since we were
Do
making a
both.
submission on March 19th.
right.
To MSBA, so that, I mean, that whole decision of the school committee doesn't have to happen until, the next 4 months.
So we're doing a
after
4-5 and 3-4-5 submission first.
So can,
Yes.
can you update that with the milestone schedule,
Yeah,
just so
yeah.
it's clear to everybody?
Yeah, Mike, so part of that, I think the thing that is, it's not so much, I love the fact that the time frame is expanded. I think that when I look at the steps that other districts have taken in their building project, whether it's Swampscott or Millis or Hopkinton or Westwood, and I've gone through all their different websites, they've really benefited from having a fundamental open forum listening session that really helped to inform a lot of this decision-making, and it gave the community a chance to really get a basic understanding of what this project is about. I mean, I know at one point last year, a request was made to actually bring in MSBA to talk to the community, so people can understand how complicated this project is. And I feel like, that February 4th session is going to be, again, sort of structured and contained, and we keep missing sort of this opportunity for people just to, the larger public, not these 24 or 25 or 26 people in these working sessions, but the larger public to be able to say, gee, these are the things that jump out at me about the site, about the grade configuration, and I don't.
Well, we have for February 24th, that meeting is solely to take public comment. Yeah, it's gonna be a quick overview of where, what we did on the educational visioning process, what we did on the site selection process, and then we're gonna open it up to the floor, and it'll be it'll be all public input. But we had to get to that point where we had done the work for both the educational plan and the site selection plan, so that we can present it and then open it up for a discussion on that.
Yes.
And if we need to do more meetings based on the input after that, then we can do that. But I think what we've been working really hard to do over the last couple of months is kind of get through the process and gather the information, so that we could, report on what we found.
Right, absolutely.
And then I think that at that point, then we open it up and let people respond to what we've done so far, and to tell us what more, what else they would like to see us do.
Right. Yeah, I think, and there's other district examples, before the project manager or the designer was hired, a lot of that groundwork was done organically within the district. So I think that you're sort of, it's kind of flip-flopped, I think, and so kind of working in that. So. The other thing too, I don't know if Anime was gonna mention this, but at the school committee meeting, there was a little bit of commentary made about trying to engage the town departments in publicizing the various, meetings and forums and everything else. And so I actually put together, and this is my background, put together a one-pager with some ideas that I figured I would just bring tonight and share with samples of what I saw in the other districts, and I don't know whether to give it to Lynn or to give it to you.
Yeah, Lynn
Okay.
reviewed it.
And I can email it to you guys too.
But I do know that we had talked about getting a Facebook page set up, and there's some other things that we should be doing in terms of making sure especially as we get all these meetings scheduled that people are aware of.
Some of it's pretty good common sense. I mean, they're just tapping into some of the checklists in a lot of ways.
I think that's part of the community buy-in, you know,
Yes.
maybe getting
Oh,
it
absolutely.
out there
Absolutely.
and
Yep.
just making sure everybody's in the loop, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
No problem. All right, so, unless anybody objects, I will offer a motion to adjourn. Usually the seconds are like lined up, ready to go on that one. Second from Walt, all in favor?
All right.
Thank you.
The proceeding was a production of Medfield TV, Community Shows.